Hello, everybody. I'm really chuffed and pleased to have the guitar virtuoso Martin Miller here and YouTuber Martin Miller. Lovely to see you, Martin. It's great to have you on again.
How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm good. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. I just watched a bunch of your videos. It was good to reconnect.
Yes, it's lovely. We've got to keep doing this. Now, a few months back, I sat down with the with Martin Miller. With Martin, there's too many Martins there. Martin Taylor, but I did confuse you with with a good guitarist as well. So I sat down with Martin Taylor the other day, and we went through the sort of 10 jazz guitarists, and I didn't let him know they'd been voted for by my patrons. And I thought, because you and me have a love of the jazz and the fusion and the rock, it would be interesting for us to tag through. I'll pick a guitarist, you pick a guitarist, and we'll just have a chat, and then we'll have our 10 favorite guitar players. How about that? How's that sound to you?
Let's do it. The conclusive list. The end of all the guitar world polls.
Yeah. And I'm going to go for some of the ones that I don't feel I talk about that I absolutely love,
Yeah.
So I'm going to kick off at number one. A guitarist that I absolutely love is Carlos Santana. Now, when I was a young man, I was into rock music. My dad was really into Latin American music. He was a jazz guy. And he stayed up one night, and he was like, got up the next morning, and he said, I watched this band, Santana. And he was telling me all about it, and I wasn't interested. We went down to the record shop, and I think I bought probably a Black Sabbath album, and he bought Amigos by Santana. And we took it home, very young at the time, only just got into guitar playing. And there's a track on that album called Europa.
Oh, yeah.
And when I heard it, his tone and sound was so beautiful. And he's one of those guitarists for me that can play a tune, like Jeff Beck can play a tune, or even Hank Marvin. He's one of those guitarists. It's when he solos, it can be quite pentatonic-y and all that bit. But when he plays a melody, it's Carlos Santana. So, I mean, how do you feel about him?
It's actually a great point to be made, and I feel like he gets dismissed for that by like elite guitar players a lot. You're completely right in the way that he uses the guitar as his voice, right? As a recognizable voice. And I swear to you, like, he is still probably one of the first 3 names normies think about, like non-musicians think about when they hear the word guitar. Like, I remember I used to have a steady gig at the Blue Note in Dresden where we would play every 2 weeks with my fusion band. And at the time, I was the biggest fusion wanker you could possibly imagine. I played nothing like I play now. It was just all the stretchy stuff you could possibly imagine, legato, tapping, all that nonsense. And we would do that for 2 hours straight, and you could almost set the clock that somebody would come up to me after and would say to me, "That sounded like Santana."
Yeah, I think, I mean, this would be interesting to talk about, because I can see both sides of this. Santana suffers from the same thing Jimi Hendrix suffers from, and I nearly said Jimi Hendrix, because there's when you chat to especially younger guitarists, they don't seem to get Hendrix, do they? Whereas my generation, we just sort of worshipped him. And I think there's a vision to these earlier guitarists in terms of what they do. Their commitment is to something different than we are committed to now in terms of playing. I think it was much more about them having their own sound and trying to express a feeling within the note itself, rather than thinking in terms of scales and chords and techniques. And I think that's the thing with Hendrix. If you were to, to me, Stevie Ray Vaughan plays like Hendrix, but in a way, loads better. It's like,
but better by what degree?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
or by what do you measure that? I guess with these types of players, you really have to judge them within the time that they were born in. That's almost like you have these discussions in football. nowadays that, oh yeah, Ronaldo would have played circles around Pele. Well, yeah, different training methods, a different standard, a different type of ball play back in the day. It's you cannot judge that without the temporal context that they were born in.
But also, Pele was playing for his life, wasn't he? I mean, that's what I mean by context. Not that I know much about football, but I know that. One of the things
those guys are the Pelés and Franz Beckenbauers of guitar, and the standard we aspire to now, the beauty standard that we aspire to nowadays, is set by them. It wasn't established before they came along; it was established after they came along.
And one of the things that's interesting with you is, tracking yours, watching all your videos and seeing how you go. You've got chops and chops and chops. We all know you've got chops, right? And you can sort of seem to be able to do anything, alternate picking, legato. You can do jazz lines, rock, blues, and you can do all that. But you have moved to something where you've made that more accessible, which is why your channel's done so good. And I actually think that's a rarer quality. Yeah. There's a million guitarists that can hold and pick at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But how do you speak to an audience? And like, I wanted to, the reason why I got in touch, well, you got in touch with me, it's weird. It was one of those synchronicity things, because you put a video up on Instagram a couple of days ago, and I think you're playing over, I think it's a D minor vamp, could be a C minor vamp. It was
probably C minor, yeah.
C minor vamp.
The mic's
it's live, and you're playing all over it. The interplay between you and the drummer is just beautiful. You're doing all the stuff I love. You got outside playing, you're playing chromatically, you're even going off on tangents. And again, he's going to get lost now, and then you rescue all that stuff I love. But all of it is like you're talking to me. And I think that's something that is rarer than just being able to go, right, I'm in C minor, C Dorian, let's just blast that 3-note string. Now I've got this tapping thing. You didn't seem to be doing that. You seem to be exploring what was going on at that time, and that's what I feel that Santana's got. He's a very exploratory guitarist. It's not I'm not saying he's in the same bracket as like a Dave Gilmour. I love all those Peter Greens. I actually think Santana is a very exploratory guitarist. He could sort of go out to space, and his harmonic vocabulary is probably a lot less than, say, a John McLaughlin or one of those guys, but he has a way of using that to go stratospheric, especially that thing when he trills and he comes up the guitar with a delay, and it's sort of, it's brilliant. I love it.
I think also probably one of his biggest contributions is the way he incorporates the band into his playing. It's like the orchestra backing him up is what makes it. I always say this to people when they go, like, when we talk about what makes a guitar solo great, I always say, well, it's the song that makes the guitar solo great. Because why is Stairway to Heaven the greatest guitar solo? Why is Comfortably Numb the greatest guitar solo? It's because of the song around it. If Comfortably Numb, if you took the solo, the song didn't exist, you made an Instagram video out of it, it'd be just another Instagram video. And I think like Santana always had really exceptional bands, fusion-inspired bands that really cook, and that embed his playing, and that's kind of what makes it special. Apart from the fact that he uses his guitar like a voice and has a really recognizable sound,
he
also has a band that pushes him to the next level.
Yeah, I do have to say though, in the 70s he was playing a Yamaha SG, I think, and when he moved over to the PRS, I didn't like that sound so much. I loved his tone in the 70s. It changed. And he played some Strat at the end of the 1970s. He sounds great on that, but I do love his tone anyway. And anybody who wants to do your guitar tone, go and check out Amigos. So I think we've done Carlos. I'm glad I've been able to have a chat.
I'll give you one thing. I really think the sound on Smooth, I know that song is maybe a little bit overplayed.
Yeah.
I think the tone on that song is divine.
It is beautiful. And the thing is, think about it. Smooth is like, I think in terms of radio play, it's the second biggest, most played tune in history.
Damn.
And this is what Carlos has done. Carlos has done albums that are full on fusion. He's done albums with Jack and John, like Herbie Hancock. He's the real deal. And yet at the same time, he's able to create a track which is full of guitar solos, and that's part of the song. Yeah. And they're beautiful, and everybody knows them. And I think that's a rare thing. So I'm glad we started off with that, because we can now start with an iconic guitar player and now move into The esoteric. So who are you going to put forth? And I have to say, everybody, I've really literally said to Martin, shall we just do this now? So he's totally unprepared. He's got no list there.
I want to get some. Okay, I'm gonna start with something maybe that you wouldn't expect. I'm gonna put Mateus Asato out, and it may have been influenced by the fact that you picked Santana, and the discussion went the way it went, and actually made me realize that Mateus has a special quality that is lost in young guitar players today, and he may be the last man standing. He may be the youngest individual that I've ever seen to have that quality. And it comes across online as well, but even more so when you play with him in person. Like, obviously he's known for his Instagram playing.
Yeah.
So he plays these beautiful lyrical melodic solo arrangements on guitar, and he's super unique in that way. Like, he combines these John Mayer-esque embellishments along with gospel vocabulary, but he's also one of the few guys who understand the blues, because I feel like in this whole neo soul movement, that's the part that's lost. It's basically de-bluesed gospel music, which almost sounds funny to say.
Yeah.
But he has that in there. He can also shred like a monster if he needs to. He has all the Paul Gilbert stuff down. He's an improviser, but what I really value about him the most is the fearlessness in his playing, and there's something that does not come across on Instagram, because that's not the context in which that fearlessness can blossom. But I've been on stage with him, and we played Purple Rain in front of like 2,000 people at the Guitar Summit show in Mannheim with my band, and he comes out flying, like he gets stung by 20 bees. That's how full of energy he is. And he runs around the stage, and then it's his solo time, and he just goes. By the way, no, first of all, his amp failed, so he couldn't play the first half of the song. He just plugs into another amp, tries to sort the situation. And when it comes time to play and the amp is working, he's at 100%. And then he just goes for it. And he plays dirty as hell. And I mean, like, the good kind of dirty. He just goes for it. And that is something you would never see online these days. So he has that Santana, he has that Hendrix element to his playing, where he just goes for it, and he doesn't give a shit whether it works out or not. Of course, because he's so great, it works out every single time. But there is an element of risk and danger in his playing that I miss in anybody younger than him.
That's so good. I mean, I have to be honest, I know exactly who the guy is. I haven't checked him out so much, and this is why it's great to do that, because I'm never going to mention this guy on this channel, and because you're so close to that world, you know, I obviously put his name up, and they can go and check him out. I think he's been on Rick Beato a few times, isn't he?
Yes.
But I will definitely check him out. But you raised a really interesting point there, because I had the same feeling when you came over to the UK and I went to see you live, and you were playing with Tom Quayle, and you did improvisation at the end. I said to you that, I said, there's something in this that you just cannot capture online.
Mm-hmm.
And it's partly the sound of the guitar, because I think I'm sat in a room and the guitar's over there and I'm hearing it at a distance. And how the hell in a recording, you can never capture that, can you? I mean, I think some of those old rock albums, you know, where they'd stick an amp in a great big room and have 15 mics, and they could get it then. But in this modern world of, you know, virtual amps and close miking, and because you were playing, there was more dynamics, and you were playing with the sound a lot more. But also, it's having the audience there as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And not having like the start and the end of the video. There's all these other things which I think have been conducive to that being lost. But Mateus is probably I mean, I'd love to know his history, to know how he developed that, because he's obviously been on stage quite a bit and played with the band.
He played with Bruno Mars, and he played with big time artists, but he also played with my band, and he just goes for it. It's like his playground. And the funny thing is, I think he's completely misunderstood by the audience, because he is actually the poster boy of the modern Instagram guitar player type. And that is because he inspired a whole generation of guitar players to do what he does. And because he is so exceptionally good at what he does, everybody thought they had to edit themselves to that point where it can hold up. What they don't understand is That's raw. He plays like that. And so he became, for me, I don't, maybe I misjudged this situation completely, but that's the way I see it. For me, he became the poster boy of something that he actually isn't, because he's misunderstood. And nowadays he leans so much more into this raw power type of thing. And that's just the kind of personality he is. He just, he just whenever there's a guitar, he just grabs it, plays something, and it's do or die. And yeah.
I can remember when I was very young, I went to a party once, and it was this rich kid, and he got a band playing in the living room. It was that big, So I got up and started playing guitar. I was soloing, and I kept going wrong, and I hit a wrong note, and I'd stop playing, and in the end, I got walked down, and this kid, I was really young at the time, and this kid came up and said, he goes, "I really like what you were doing." I said, "I kept hitting bum notes." And they said, "Yeah, we know, but it doesn't make any difference. We still loved it, so just don't worry about it." and people know me now. I just don't care about that stuff now. And it was that guy, because I thought, yeah, he's right. Because if I was watching and like Steve Ray Vaughan, he's playing away and he's burning, and then he just hits a bum note, I absolutely don't care. In fact, I think it would show you he's in the real world. And Hendrix is brilliant. There's about all those live concerts. You can see so often he'll hit the wrong note. You can see go, whoa, and he doesn't care. And so I think that bravery of just let's just go, it's incredible.
I need to become better at that. I maybe should tell this story. I have a very conflicted relationship to making mistakes on stage. It was my father was a huge Pink Floyd fan, and it was the time of the Pulse tour. I think that was before, and there was a broadcast of one of the concerts. I think it was the Earl's Court concert, or no, it was not the Earl's Court concert, because that's the one that made it onto Pulse, the live album. It was like a concert in Prague or something, and it was broadcast on television. And they play the intro to "Shine on You Crazy Diamond." My father VHS records it so we could watch it back, and that's what I did. I watched it 100 times over. And David Gilmour plays the intro to "Shine on You Crazy Diamond." He goes, "Pew, pew, pew, bap," and open G string snaps, and then you have to delay, bap, 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 bap. And the audience starts cheering. They absolutely loved it. But my father kept banging on about that mistake for like another 10 years. It was still, "Oh, remember when Gilmour played that wrong note?" And now I have a very conflicted relationship with mistakes, because for me, it was like, your fingers were probably sweating like hell. Just slip off the string, the most human thing to ever happen. And somebody will talk to their son about it 10 years later.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Forgive my father. He's awesome, but
yeah, but he's the guy to blame for your perfectionism. The thing is, I can remember, because we've been chatting for a while, and you've been talking about this, and I know you've really been exploring it. And when that guitar solo came up the other day, I was like, "Whoa, mine's taking risks." Yeah. And I thought you did this chromatic run up, and I thought and they're always risky, because you're going, I've got to land somewhere, and it's got to be in time and in tune. And a lot of the time, it's like because the thing about improvisation, I believe, it's about reaction time. It's like you get to that point, you go, I'll have to go up a tone now. Oh no, I'm okay. And that is, you were playing like that far more than you were, say, a couple of years ago. I could tell you are taking risks. You are.
I remember exactly that chromatic line you're talking about, because I've never played that. It's like I play a note and then I bend up to that note from a half step below, and that came to me in that moment. It's like, okay, I have no idea where this is going. Just keep moving it up till I'm somewhere where I know the fretboard.
You're playing. I don't want to keep blowing sunshine up your bum, but when I watched it, it was like, it's so organized. It's because you'll go, when you play outside, I went, oh, I know what he's done there. That's straight. He's pretending there's an altered dominant on the dominant of that minor, and he's played it. I get that. And then he did something else. Well, now I don't know what that is. And then he went, oh, now he's just going. Yeah. He's gone really weird. And I love the storytelling of that. And I think that's something that you can only do in the moment. And it's funny because Rick Rubin's interviewed Rick Beato. I've just watched it this morning. It's fascinating because you actually heard about Rick. And he said at the end of this, he says, all the great players are instinctual. He said, whether they know all the stuff or not, when it comes down to it and you're taking the solo, it's instinctual.
Yes.
So is it my turn to come up with someone now? Right, I'm going to come up with a fusion guitarist who I feel is massively underrated. And so underrated, I don't know whether you'll know him or not, but he's one of my favourite guitar players of all time,
Bill Connor?
and that is Mr. Ray Gomez.
Ray Gomez. I just the other day heard something on the radio or television. I don't know, and somebody played. And I had to Google who the guitar player was, and it was Ray Gomez. What did I listen to? Interesting. Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
So Ray Gomez is a Spanish guitarist. He was in a big pop band in Spain in the early 70s. Had a few hit records. He then goes over to America. When he arrives in America, he jumps into the fusion scene. Now, Ray has got those jazz chops, but he's also got the blues chops. Ray has serious blues chops, and he's a very, very fiery player.
Mm-hmm.
And he landed the gig eventually with Stanley Clarke. So he's the guitarist who does the solo on School Days.
Oh yeah.
Sure. He also hooked up with Narada Michael Walden. He's on that album. He plays on. There's an album by Lenny White called Venusian Summer. It's one of the great fusion albums of all time. There's a track on side 2 that ends with a guitar duel between Al Di Meola and Larry Coryell called The Prince of the Sea or something like this, and it's in like 15. It's proper full-on fusion. And there's a track on there that's a million miles an hour called Mating Drive, and Ray Gomez just is incredible. Now, after that, he got a solo deal, and that album, which I wish I could remember the name, I think it's called Power. It's either called Power or Velocity. It's got some sort of name like that. If you listen to the playing on this, he sounds like Jeff Beck sounds in the 1980s. Ray Gomez is something else, absolutely something else, and I feel like he's a forgotten force, really. Now he played a lot with Narada Michael Walden, so in the 1980s when Narada was producing Aretha Franklin and Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, Ray also plays the guitar solos on those, so everyone's heard him because he's on massive records. Shaka Khan, he's played with all those as well, but Ray is something else. Fiery, got all those bends, and just is and the people who know, they know. So I've given you someone to check out. Go and check him out on I'll send you a couple of links. It's his solo album, really. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've ever consciously listened to him. Yeah.
Yeah, you will know him. I mean, everyone knows the guitar solo on School Days. You know that, don't you? That's Ray.
Yes. Okay, that's him. Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So, yeah, amazing player. He's also on my
the slap tune, right?
Pardon?
The Stanley Clarke slap.
Yeah, the bling bling ding, 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 that one. Yeah.
I've seen mostly live versions of it with Larry Coryell, I think.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Yeah.
Well, I also feel Larry Coryell has got the short thrift in the jazz. I mean, he basically invents jazz rock, and he comes out, and then John McLaughlin comes in and sort of does what John does, and everyone knows that. But when you start to go deep into what Coryell's doing, there's a level of chops there that is quite astonishing, which I think is less showy than John McLaughlin's. He wasn't, and I mean, he's a very good alternate picker for 1970, like one of the best in the world. But when you compared to what John's doing, it seems to go under the radar. But in terms of his use of like sort of country picking, country guitar, Chet Atkins type of styles, and then the use of the blues, he had a real thorough knowledge of guitar that he was able to bring into jazz guitar. But I'm now talking about another guy. But yeah, there's a whole host of fusion guys which I think have gone under the radar.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So that was done, but that was we've done that was number 10, not 8. So you were on number 7 now. Who are you thinking of?
I'm just. This is not. By the way, my list is not going to be in order.
Yeah, when this isn't in order, this is just what it is. I'll come up with the title of it. I'll have a thumbnail and a title. You know what I'm like.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to go with context here, since we're talking about Larry Coryell, and I'm going to throw in Mike Stern into the ring.
Oh, you are.
Because we talked about the C minor vamp, and for me, the undisputed king of the C minor vamp, C minor specifically, is Mike Stern. I cannot tell you how many C minor Mike Stern licks I've transcribed in my life. And so all the material, all the vocabulary that I play on those VAMs, it's all his. I have the transcription book somewhere. He's the one that got me into transcribing other people's licks. When I first heard the tune Chromazone, that was my entry drug. I was already into the world of fusion. I was already being, or at least attempted to be, indoctrinated into becoming a jazz guitar player by my former guitar teacher, but I wasn't quite getting it. I was doing it because I was a good student, I was eating my vegetables, but it didn't quite click for me. And for me, Mike Stern was the connective tissue because he has the modern rock and blues sound, or at least at the time modern. But he combines it with very accessible jazz and bebop vocabulary. And I still think he's probably one of the best guys to check out for guitar players to transcribe bebop lines, because the way he plays them and incorporates them is textbook. It's like the way you would find it in some encyclopedia. It's like perfectly executed. The right notes at the right time over the right chord, resolved perfectly. And you can always what I really like is the structure in his playing. You can always point to what he's doing and what he's trying to do. It's very readable. It's easy to connect to. And that's something that I really value. There are certain types of jazz fusion players that when they go off, I cannot follow them into that realm, or I have a hard time doing that. With Mike Stern, I always know what he's up to. And if he goes a little bit too far outside the box, he'll reel it in with a blues bend. And that is something that I really appreciate about him. Also, one of the guys you recognize with one note.
Totally. And what I'd add to that is that I'm friends with the American jazz fusion guitarist called BD Lenz. BD's great guitar player in himself, fantastic player. He's had a lot of lessons with Mike Stern and really picked his brain. And he said to me, he said, that guy's harmonic knowledge is limitless. Mm-hmm. So when you hear Mike Stern, what you're hearing is the tip of the iceberg. And I think that's one of the things where you're seeing him as being accessible again. There's a lot of snotty jazz guys will go, well, why is he doing this? Now, Mike Stern can do all that. And also alternate pick it. He can alternate pick it all. And he's doing this in the late 70s. He's one of the first guitarists.
Stuff.
Him and Schofield, they're the two.
It's a strat. It's mind blowing how fast he is. And the lines he plays, are the legit lines. They're not patterns that would work out really well that suit themselves well for fast picking. It's the same stuff, but sped up 30%.
And this is what people don't realize. If you're playing sort of bebop or chromatic, enclosed, because that's what he's doing. I think that's what he brought to guitar. I know I'm going to get a bit technical here, but rather than thinking in terms of scales, the sort of Satriani thing that he brought in the 80s, Stern brings in this enclosure that, so it's like he is going up through arpeggios and he's enclosing them, like say a tone up and then a semitone below, then hitting the note and creating his lines like that. Now you try alternate picking those because you're going in three directions at once. And Stern's a real virtuoso. I don't think he gets the credit for this. Plus, when he decides to start doing screaming blues, he can't be touched. It's like, and his solo on Fat Time, on that is my favourite guitar solo. It's Stern. And the reason is because you feel like this kid's walked in, he's got all the chops. He's walked into a Miles Davis session, not just a Miles Davis session, but Miles is actually coming back from being in obscurity. He gets in this situation and Miles goes playing. He's probably said, I want you to play like Hendrix, do some of that B.B. King stuff. And then Stern just takes off and you can feel it. And he's just going in a million directions at once. It's almost like avant-garde and yet funky and bluesy. You're so right about Mike Stern. And I think Schofield was the other guy that was able to integrate sort of rock blues guitar and bebop lines. Because none of the 70s fusion guys are doing that.
Yes.
It's a different approach.
It has a more compressed energy. Like with Schofield, especially, like, do you know the trio with Steve Swallow and Bill Stewart?
Yeah.
When they play this kind of funky music, very, very rhythmically oriented. You always feel like there's a ball of energy waiting to burst, but it never bursts.
He's there. There's some players that seem to connect and fly, like Alan Holdsworth. They seem to connect Coltrane, connect to an energy source, and then there's other players that seem to be able to put the pressure on and hold it under, and I love both. But when I was a kid, I got a bootleg of the Dennis Chambers group.
Will matter.
Yeah, and there was one bit where he's playing so fast and so chromatic, and it's all legato, and it sounded like Holdsworth.
Mm-hmm.
And once you hear it, and you go back, especially to some of the 80s ones, every now and then, but he holds it in. But that guy could play legato like Holdsworth, and he could play all over the place with it. And he was just burning, honestly. These guys, I don't think, in this modern, 30 seconds on Instagram thing, I don't think people really understand the sort of depth of what these players have got under their fingers.
Absolutely. And they also don't understand that it's improvised.
Yes.
They just hear the notes. They like people nowadays observe it on a surface level, and it sounds like X, which is always funny when somebody describes like players like Tosin Abasi. Oh yeah, that's fusion, because on a mere surface level observation, it has a little bit of a similar sound as fusion. But the way the music is made, musicians sat in a room improvising over chord forms and reacting to each other. It's a completely different process of making music happen. It's not just the final sound; it's the way the music is being made.
And I appreciate what those guys are doing. And Matt Garstka,
absolutely.
I think Matt Garstka can do all that.
He's
one of the greatest drummers in the world at the moment. He's astonishing. But when they play, the harmonic vocabulary isn't juicy enough for me. I like the juice, I love the blues, but I like to feel. I like to feel the notes. I am a big fan of complex harmonic soloing, and I think a lot of people think they're just doing it to be clever, because you have to train your ear to hear it. And I don't, in a lot of the sort of progressive metal or math rock or whatever, I just don't quite get that. It's very complex sort of physically. Yes. But there's not the juice there, because it's so hard to do. And the thing is that I'll give you an example of this. Is on the internet somewhere.
I was not trying in any way to slam that. I'm just saying my critique was of the way people,
the way they're perceived, yeah.
And because it's judged for the wrong thing. And obviously the contribution of animals as leaders is completely different in the prog world, and taking that to the cutting edge.
Yeah, but they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible as players. It's astonishing. Yeah. Matt Garstka utterly astonishes me, and he's more interesting to me when they just stick him in the room and he starts playing, because he can do anything. That bloke can do. He can play like that sort of neo soul, Chris Dave funk if he wants to, and he can also play like double bass drums to the cows come home. He's such a player. But the depth that I'm talking about, there's a video on the internet of Bill Frisell, and he's in sort of some concert could be like a Tiny Desk concert. And someone says, "Will he play a Beatles song?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Have we got a Beatles book here?" They fish one of those piano Beatles books out, that comes out. It's got the chords and it's got the melody. And he puts it on his music stand, and then he deconstructs it on the spot.
Yeah, that's
chord, melody, bass line, and it sounds like Bill Frisell. He don't sound like Joe Pass. Sounds like Bill Frisell, and he plays like Strawberry Fields Forever, just looking and playing through it. And that's the depth. Is someone who can think in music like
put that video on an Instagram and be like, "Yeah, that's not very technical, is it?"
Yeah. Right. So it's my turn now, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm going to go with Dimebag Darrell.
Oh yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason why I love him so much is he's got great tone, right? It's that point in metal where you still feel like you're hearing a band in a room. It doesn't sound like it's all been put together.
Absolutely.
When you listen to, say, I'm Broken, that guitar solo, when it goes to the guitar solo, they got no rhythm guitar. It's bass, drums, and guitar, and all that space comes in. And within that, Dimebag seems to have incredible chops, but no harmonic knowledge. This is what I just feel. There doesn't seem to be any logic to what he's playing, and yet it's all genius. And there's a bit in I'm Broken, it's one of my favourite guitar moments, where he builds up to this point and then he just goes, he's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. He just sounds like he's fired up by metal. and you know, and it's not even blues derived, and it's not 3 note per string fast stuff. Dimebag just is bonkers. It's
Yeah.
absolutely bonkers.
It's what you said there is so great because I think Pantera, of all the metal bands I can think of, is probably the one that ages the most gracefully.
They do.
And that is because it's a dude screaming into a mic, a dude hitting a bass, a dude playing a guitar, and a dude hitting drums. And we like I thought about this before. Why does like 80s fusion or smooth jazz is so unappealing to a lot of people nowadays? And that's because it has its time. It's a product of its time. It has it written all over it. The way the synths sounded in the 80s, they only really sound like in the 80s. The way if you listen to, I don't know, any classic jazz record, a piano will always sound like a piano. And in the same way, a distorted guitar will always sound like that. A drum hit really hard will always sound like that. And a guy screaming into a mic will always sound like that. And you use those simple tools and put something together that is memorable. You have a timeless piece of art. It's a little bit, they're a little bit like, and don't, people are going to probably slam me for saying that they're a little bit like the Red Hot Chili Peppers of metal.
I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Blood Sugar Sex Magic is one of the greatest albums of the 80s. It came out in that year along with like Nevermind, Nirvana. Everyone goes on about Nevermind. I got Nevermind. I liked it. But the album of 1991 for me was Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Yeah.
Because it was so funky and out there, and they nailed rap metal because it's hard to nail rap metal.
Mhm.
And they did it before Rage Against the Machine. They got it right, you know. And it's such a, and Rick Rubin produced it. It brings in all these elements together. Red Hot Chili Peppers is something else, and Frusciante is another guitarist that I couldn't mention because I think he's such an interesting player. And again, that's a guy with a ton of chops that knows not to use it all the time. I mean, he you know, he was up for auditioning for Zappa at one point because of his ability to play complex stuff, and yet you listen to his solos and they're so raw. And I think that's something in guitar playing that comes from bands, and the 90s was the last gasp of it, really, where you had bands and guitarists would do an interesting guitar solo within the context of the song. And I think Dimebag, in terms of metal, is the absolute incredible. The whole band they're funky as well, aren't they?
Yes.
Pantera, they really groove.
Yes, in a non-quantized way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the drumming is so vicious, it sounds like he's really playing that.
Yes. The same, yeah, I'll tell the story sometimes. Somebody put on a Sepultura record a couple years back while I was in a tour bus, and I kind of was semi-sleepy, and I woke up and I heard the drums. And the first image I got in my head was somebody slamming the shit out of drums. And when I hear production nowadays, I don't hear somebody slam the shit out of drums. I hear somebody clicking a mouse.
Mm. And then kids have heard this, and they've all been chatting online of how to play this computerized drumming, because a few years ago it was all computerized. I can remember you could look at the scores for the world's fastest drummer for bass drums, and then you could buy metal albums where the bass drums were faster than the world record for bass drums, so you knew they'd been programmed in. Now the talent level of kids who have been studying this and find ways to play it, and all the incredible bass drum techniques, heel towing, and moving side to side. And I've been studying it, and I've been watching all these young kids studying their technique to get my double kick up faster, which it is now a lot faster. And so I'm fascinated by this, but the way they've achieved it is by bringing the volume down.
Yes.
And triggering.
And then triggering.
And then there's this big thing that I've got into rouse about it. And people go, yeah, but that's the way you play modern metal. And I do accept that. But what you lose is the feeling that someone's slamming the drums.
Yes. And that to me is more important than the speed of it. Yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
So that's Dimebag done.
Dimebag.
What number are we on? We've got to keep tabs, Martin.
Okay, let's
how many have we done so far? That was 3, wasn't it?
You've done 3, I've done 2.
Yeah, go on then.
I got 30 more minutes, then I have to go catch the next call. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. I'm gonna pick someone extremely popular now, someone who's currently extremely popular and quite controversial, and it's in one way a super obvious basic pick, but I'm gonna go there anyway. I'm gonna go with Joe Bonamassa. No reaction there.
It was almost they thought that was a brilliant move there, because we both then froze, and then I thought, well, I've frozen, mine's frozen. They thought, well, has he actually frozen? Um, you
No,
know something? I'm not super knowledgeable on Joe
okay.
Bonamassa, so I'm going to take my take on this. I've never really listened to him. I've seen him in a long line of guitarists that started with Steve Ray Vaughan. Then you had Johnny Lang, that nobody mentions anymore. You had that, it's the sort of white blues guitarist. So there's always John Mayer was one, and then Joe Bonamassa comes out, and I've always seen him in that lineage. And people have always been a bit snotty towards him. And then the other day, I thought I'd check him out, and I started to check his solos out. And I thought, it's actually, there's more there than just the blues. He's just a great player, and it's all there. It's all there. He's got
prodigy, that guy. You should check out the video. There's a video called like the making of Bloodline, or so. He had a band called the Bloodline or something like that in the early 90s when he was 15. Actually, no, they started when he was 12, I think, or something. He made the record when he was 16, and it's Miles Davis's son on drums, and it's like blues rock, but with songs, and his playing is already extremely developed, but it's also super raw and super amazing. Like he at age 16 was already killing, and his playing is very different than it is now. I feel like nowadays he's found what resonated the most with people, and he's leaning into that. But he has a lot more under the hood. He's also a mean country picker, and
that's what I saw. I thought this guy can play like he could do sort of Elvis Presley, Chet Atkins. He's got some jazz knowledge. And also, his band is so funky. That drummer it's just feel to die for.
Well, my favorite era of Joe Bonamassa would be the early 2000s. That's when I got to know him, because he was broadcast on television. It was his Rock Palast show. And that band he had back in the day, he is not touring with anymore. It's a guy on bass who plays with a chorus, stereo chorus, so it fills out the sound nicely. And he does tapping and slapping, and he kind of pushes Joe Bonamassa. His band nowadays is a little bit more laid back, I feel, to have the spotlight towards Joe. But back in the day, the drummer and bass player he had at the time, you could kind of feel like they were equals on stage, and it had more of a jazz rock fusion type of vibe where they would be pushing each other towards greater heights. So that's my favorite Joe Bonamassa era. But my favorite Joe Bonamassa moments are probably not the ones on stage. They're the ones where he's like, he has a guitar in interviews. He has a guitar in his hands. Somebody's interviewing him, and he goes off his stream of consciousness. Oh yeah, you can do this. As you mentioned, Chet Atkins type thing. Plays a Chet Atkins type thing. And then you bring in the blues via, I don't know, Gary Moore or whatever. Plays a Gary Moore type of thing. And this kind of peek into the mind of a prodigy, the way he is able to access all this information and the way he compartmentalizes it and thinks about it, to me, that is some of the most valuable contribution of his, at least from my personal taste and my own playing.
Well, I'll tell you who I'm going to offer against Joe Bonamassa. Well, not against him, but to a time with that. He's a guitarist I used to tour with all the time, not playing drums, but opening up for him many years ago. And he's just incredible. And that's Walter Trout.
Oh, yeah.
Walter Trout is something else. And when I used to play with the blues guitarist called Ian Parker, we were doing the full-on blues, and we signed to the same label as Walter. And so I must have done 100 shows, maybe more than that, all across Germany, Holland. And so I'd get to see this show every single night. And Walter's a showman, and Walter puts on a show. You turn up, there's like 1,000 people there. He sells it to the audience and all this type of thing. But on the very first gig, he comes out, he does Dust My Brew, nice shuffle, does a great solo. And then he gets to the second track, and he goes to this slow A minor blues. It's absolutely incredible. And he just pulled when a great blues guitar can pull. And also, he's got so much chops. He can burn. He knows all the stuff, but he was just so emotional. And me and Ian were upset watching it. And I was looking around at him. He had tears in his eyes. I was like, this is unbelievable. And we didn't expect it, because we thought Walter was just going to be like a blues guitarist. It was so full of emotion. And then the rest of the show went on, and it was great. And then afterwards, I sat back and I said, I went, Walter, that solo was incredible that you did on the second track. He goes, yeah. He said that's where I give it the emotion. He said, that is what I do. He says, once you've done that, there's nowhere to go after that. He said, so I'll just get it away, and then we'll do some shuffles, do some funky stuff. I'll play some picking. I'll do that. He said, and it was interesting that he said that he was able to turn that on, do it, and then once you've done it, you can't really do it again. You can't do it all night because you switch off. And he knew that. He was such an interesting guy, Walter was. He was the real deal. Mm-hmm. He'd started with John Mayall.
Right? He's still kicking.
Yeah. He had a terrible, when he was younger, he had a terrible drug habit, like alcohol, heroin, all that. And when I was playing with him, he was completely clean. And it was comedy because his whole band seemed like that. They were all, clean. And I can remember we did a gig in Cornwall, and he discovered a Cornish cream tea, and they're very sugary. And he was sat there, these blues guys, you know what Walter's like? He sat there eating the Cornish cream tea with little teacups and drinking it. And he turns and goes, Andy, I said, yes, Walter. He goes, these are incredible. What's this? I said, it's a Cornish cream tea, Walter. And he goes, this is like heroin. It's incredible.
That's a little bit better for you, I think.
Yeah. There's so many of these players out there. Walter's one of them, and they do the same thing every year. They put an album out, go and do the tour. He starts touring around about April. They finish around about October. They don't really have a night off. I can remember jumping on a tour with him, and we did 30 dates straight, and then we were dead. And a few years ago, he's American, obviously, and his liver went because of all the stuff in the past, and he nearly died. They had to do a big concert to raise some money, and they got him back on track. But I don't know whether Walter will see it, and I don't know if he can remember me. But he was a cool guy, and I used to play him like all this mad fusion stuff, and he used to love it. He loved it all, So that's my number. What was that? My number 4, wasn't it?
The interesting thing about like elite players, they tend to check out everything. Like if you watch a guy like, I don't know, Gary Holt from Slayer, he constantly up-talks people and artists that are outside of the thrash metal realm. It's only their fans that are like super elitist and segregating music into all these boxes. It's the same. I get this on my cover videos when people say, "Oh, David Gilmour would disapprove."
Who cares?
First of all, who cares? Second of all, from my experience, the top elite players love when people mess around with their stuff.
But also, Dave Gilmour's only got half a moustache. I have to say it. I watched him on that Rick Beato interview, and all the way through, I was going, there's nobody. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire, and he's only got half a moustache, and no one's mentioned it. I feel I must mention it. Surely, with his money, you could get a moustache transplant, or have someone grow a moustache for him and then loan it. I'll grow him one if he wants.
No, I think that's a power move.
Do you?
Everybody knows he has the money to get a mustache transplant, but he doesn't. It's like Jeff Bezos. He could.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a negotiating tactic as well, couldn't it? Because if you go to talk to him, and you're talking to him, but you think, I can't hear what you're saying, Dave, because I'm just looking at your half a moustache. Why did no one mention it? Dave Gilmour. I mean, this is the thing. We can't get through one of these without chatting about Dave Gilmour or mentioning him all the time. So you've got to give him kudos. There's something. I mean, because what he's done is really reach people emotionally. That's the bottom line. We all know it.
He is the equivalent when somebody thinks of feeling on the guitar, which is one of my least favorite words to use in music ever. He's the one that springs to everybody's mind, it seems. Yeah.
But the thing is, what we're doing here, I'm going to call this video the 10 guitarists that we should be talking about more. Because that's basically what we're doing, aren't we? And so we've formed the structure halfway through because we're improvising. But I think that's a great. I've never done that one before.
Well, then Bonamassa would not quite fit in that category because he's spoken about a lot. But I feel like he's misunderstood.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
I'll add that in brackets then.
You don't have to. I just want to.
I don't care.
I do not feel that Joe Bonamassa is not talked about enough.
I've only got 50,000 subscribers. How many have you got?
880-ish.
Oh my God, you've got up 100,000 since I bloody last spoke to you. So I can understand you've got to tread carefully. I'm not at that point yet, but I'm feeling it because the great Unwashed are coming to mind now. It used to be just like I had the elite jazz fusion audience, but now I'm getting all sorts of fans, and they're putting up. Oh, I'm a big fan of you too, Andy. I'm glad you did something good on YouTube. I think bloody hell, U2 fans are watching it now. And so
I love
you have
the
to,
YouTube
you
videos.
got to treat people. So I'm in a different boat to you. I can talk about, I don't have to get my titles right. They know how I roll. As long as I've got something click. Look, all of you are watching this now. Clickbait your title. You will all hear Martin Miller, stop moaning. Yeah, Joe Bonamassa, he does get mentioned a lot, but he fits into this thing because we
I
only
like
came
him.
up with it
Sue me.
halfway through. We're jamming. Me and Martin are YouTubers. We're proper YouTubers. We're jamming.
Yeah. Let me raise you the edge then, since we
Go
talked
on.
about U2. I thought the U2 video you did was utterly fantastic. I was ready to hear another Bono Besh Fest, and I was very pleasantly surprised that it wasn't.
My jaw hit the floor. And if you want to know what about U2, go and check the first album out. That's 1980.
Yeah.
Everyone's playing synths. They come out, and that band sounds amazing. Now they're not the best players in the world,
Not
but
yet.
that's a band. They've worked a sound out with Bono's incredible voice. He is a virtuoso singer. I don't care what anyone says. He's an incredible singer. The Edge's guitar playing it's like Andy Summers. Those two guitarists have been able to take a simple song. He could take 1 5 6 4, and he's found a way of making that really compelling. If you listen to With or Without You and you listen to his guitar playing, it's wonderful. And part of it is because he's channeling Robert Fripp and Brian Eno and ambient guitarists. It's high level stuff for one of the biggest bands in the world. Adam Clayton's bass, that pedal thing that they do, it's a trio. They found a way of making a power trio huge. And then you listen to them build upon this, and then when they get to the point where they've really nailed their sound, they bring Brian Eno in, and then they rewrite the book and pull it off. They are a force of nature, and they're the only band really since 1980 that is equal to the Stones or the Beatles or Led Zeppelin. And the Edge occupies something in all of this. And when you watch the live videos, he steps forth like a guitar hero, but a guitar hero remodeled in post-punk, and his influence is huge. The guy's incredible, and I would love to sit down with him after a lifetime to do it. He's highly skilled, but I'd love to know where his skill is. Do you know what I'm saying?
There's something unique about his touch.
Yeah.
And I feel like it doesn't get spoken about enough because his touch is getting drowned out in effects a lot of the times. But there's this, for example, let's talk about With or Without You. There's this guitar part. Bang, bang, goo, gee, goo, gee, goo, gee, goo. Bam, bam. He hits the open D string and open G string. The way he hits those two notes, I cannot replicate. I just can't get the sound. I can get all the effect settings right. I can play. I have a Morgan AC20 amplifier. Same kind of bass tone. I cannot get those two notes to sound like that no matter what I do. There is something unique in the way he holds the pick, in the way he attacks the strings. I don't know, the texture of his skin on his left hand, God knows what it is. There is something in the way he plays those 4 notes that cannot be replicated and that sell the song. And it's like that with a lot of guitar players who are not necessarily known for their virtuoso skills. Tony Iommi is another one of those guys, where I think he plays very thin strings, and obviously he has this condition on his hand, and he plays through a highly distorted amplifier. He plays a guitar with a shorter scale, which makes the strings looser. He hits one note, it goes ever so slightly sharp, but in the coolest way possible. And it's the same with the Edge. When he hits those 2 open strings, they go ever so slightly sharp. And because he has the delay on, the different intonations as the notes go sharp and they mingle with the delay, that there's this chorus sound that is being created because the different pitch levels, micro pitches, overlayer each other. And that's so incredible and unique. I love the way he plays muted notes on the guitar and the way that merges with the delay. It's never a sound I can get for myself.
And his vocabulary is huge. And then later on, when they get to tracks like Vertigo, A Beautiful Day, he rocks out and he does solos. He does it all. I imagine in 1978, when they were been just going for a few years, he was probably like a punk guitar player. But I think as time's gone on, he has developed a level of skill. But his skill is not Steve Vai or Holdsworth or Sean Lane's skill. It's another type of skill. And his skill is the ability to have a song and being able to create a part which makes that this part of the song. That's the rarest skill going. It really is, I feel. Because unless someone's been in the situation, you pull some virtuoso guitarist off the thing, right? You stick him in a big studio with producers behind a glass wall, ton of money being spent. You've got a great big legend there, and they're looking at you saying, "Can you come up with a guitar part for this? Something equal to what the Edge would do, like on With or Without You. Can you come up with something like that now?" Most people go, "Oh no," and then they suddenly understand what that bloke could do. Get the Edge in there, and you're going to get the Edge, and he's probably going to give you a hit record.
And he's probably the greatest influence for all the LA studio guitar players from the 80s and on.
Yeah.
Also, all the whole worship scene and stuff like that, which is enormous around the world. The Edge has written the book on how to make those songs come to life. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Like, you know, Tom Quayle, genius level improviser, he finds it very hard to write songs because he has to commit to an idea. Right? I think that's what scares a lot of improvisers. He can put out 10 million ideas at once, but to commit to one and say that this is the definitive thing that makes the song is a whole different level of skill. So
and you know what they lack, these players? A producer. I worked with Dave Z on an album, and Dave Z was Prince's producer. He worked with Prince on Purple Rain, and then he worked with everybody. He'd come over to do a Clapton album, and I can remember I was in there, and we're trying to get the parts, and he did so much mind games with us, but he wouldn't let me come in to the control room and listen to my parts. He basically said, "You play, and I'll tell you when you've got it." And actually, once I committed to that, it really helped. And I've been in studios with other producers and said, "Look, when you're happy, can you tell me?" And you put your first tape down and they go, "That's fine, Andy, great." And you go, "Really?" And I think, Jesus Christ, I cocked up. I came in late on something. Are you sure it's all right? "Yeah, it's fine. We'll have a listen through." "Yeah, it's fine, Andy." Because it's always the first take. And Tom, wouldn't it be amazing to say, "Oh, put 4 ideas down for us. So you go away." And have a producer say, "That's the one." Because this is the thing that we don't have anymore in terms of the industry. That's why they got those guys there.
Yeah, we're all produced.
Yeah, and the thing with producers, they're working for the label. The label's going to pay for the record to come out, right? They wanted to sell a ton of records, so they put a guy in there who is able to deliver that and wrangle the talent. And this is the thing that you don't have anymore in the industry. I'm going to go for number 1 now. This is the last one, isn't it? Oh, I don't know. I'll tell you who I'm going to go for
I
because
think I had 4. You had 4, so I have 1 each.
Yeah, have you done your 4 yet?
I've done 4. You've done 4, so we have 1 each to go.
Yeah, 1 each. So this is well, I'm going to go to the guy I always champion, and it's a bit obvious. It's almost like the cliched guitarist that everyone should talk about more. But if there's a few people watch this and come to the end of it and go, "Well, God, yeah, I've never heard of him. I'll check him out." Lenny Breau.
Oh man,
greatest guitarist who ever lived.
He's up there. He's like Joe Pass 2.0, right? Like the refined version. Like what Stevie Ray Vaughan is for Jimi Hendrix, Lenny Breau is for Joe Pass.
And he's also that for Chet Atkins as well.
Yeah.
It's like Chet Atkins. Lenny Breau, for those of you who know, are just nodding away. And it's almost like a cliche, but still, he is not that well known. I mean, you go on the internet now to YouTube, and there's a whole cult around Lenny Breau. So Lenny Breau was a child prodigy. His parents had like a country and western group in the 1950s. Mm-hmm. He started playing in a Chet Atkins style. By the time he was about 9, he could outplay Chet Atkins. Then he discovered Bill Evans and jazz. He started to incorporate that into his country playing. He was a fingerstyle player, and his dad actually slapped him around the face when he was on this gig, playing all these jazz notes. So he went off on his own. Chet Atkins took him under his wing, produced him. The albums didn't sell. Breau fell into a drug habit, which kept him away from the mainstream, making a few albums here and there, but astonishing albums, and a few videos here and there, astonishing. In 1984, he was murdered, strangled to death, and left in a swimming pool, and the murder was never solved. Jesus. Although his girlfriend at the time did leave the country at that point. But I'm not saying nothing. was a long time ago. She's got away with it. Lenny Breau is astonishing in every shape and form. And now they've just brought out an album that he made in 1962 when he was like just a young kid, right? He's playing fingerstyle legato. It's like Holdsworth in 1962. You could see he got the speed thing out of his system, because one of the things with Breau is he doesn't play that fast. It's not about that. It's about these sort of. It's just.
But he plays 5 things at the same time. Yeah.
And no, I mean, you're a virtuoso guitarist. Could you do any of that?
There was a time in college when I was really into that, and I was trying to get myself there.
What's it like learning that stuff?
It's just every bar takes a week, a week to master. And I eventually thought, this is not what I'm naturally good at. I was trying to make myself good at it, and so I stuck with what I was naturally good at. But yeah, I tried for a while, and it's astonishingly difficult.
Yeah, and it's like he's got this incredible fingerstyle playing, so he can play flamenco, Chet Atkins styles picking, folk picking. He also does like Indian drone stuff. I can remember once I was telling a jazz guitarist here in the UK, and he never heard him. And we were online. I said, put on the Velvet Touch of Lenny Breau now. And so we were listening to it, we're chatting, like, you know, on Messenger while we listen to it. And the first track comes on. He goes, God, this is amazing. God, he's got beautiful tone. His notes are incredible. And then he goes, who's on rhythm guitar? And I went, there isn't a rhythm guitar. And he said, what? I said, that's Lenny Breau. And he went, oh my God. Yep. He said, he goes, the solo is astonishing in itself. But then when you realize that the chord comping and the bass lines are happening all at the same time, you know, absolutely incredible. So I hope we've gushed about him enough that there's a few more people now going to go out and spend the time to have a research into Lenny Breau. An incredible story as well, an incredible character. Mm-hmm. Incredible character.
All right.
So everybody now, this is the peak of the video. This is the bit we've all been. You're not interested in what I say. This is Martin's number one. He said it wasn't in order, but I'm making it in order. Who's the guitarist you think that we don't?
I could name 1,000 names now, right? Like John Petrucci is on my list, Steve Lukather, all these dudes, Eric Johnson.
Well, can I throw? I really wish I'd mentioned Stanley Jordan, because I interviewed Stanley the other day, and I felt like I was in the presence of Bach. It was just, I don't know if you watched the video. My God, he tuned the solar system to the Dorian mode, and then created rhythms and melodies out of the relationship between the planets. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The guy's on another level, but I feel like we should even, Stanley Jordan's not even playing the guitar, just take him out the mix.
You know who's kind of like that? Have you checked out Charlie Hunter?
Yeah, oh my God, yes. Amazing player.
Yep.
Amazing player. I'm getting into fingerstyle more now. I'm really seeing that, and I'm listening to country records, and every single country record's got some monster guitar player on there.
I'll give you another honorable mention. Have you checked out Scotty Anderson?
I'm so glad you said that, because I thought I did Lenny Breau, obviously. I thought I should have done Stanley Jordan, and then I thought I should really do Scotty Anderson.
Okay, good. We get that out of our system as well.
Yeah, and so you've hit. Martin has hit the jackpot with number one. He really is the most under-talked about guitarist. I mean, this bloke can play. He does solos. It sounds like 2 solos being played at the same time.
Yes, it's bizarre, and it's real. I didn't believe it was real until I saw his VHS, and he does it. And I know how.
Describe what he's like. We haven't really said who he is and what he does.
Yeah. Okay. So he's a country guitar player. I think he's a session guitar player. He comes more from the Chet Atkins tradition, I would say, than the Brent Mason or Albert Lee tradition. He's a highly polyphonic player when he wants to be. So he's all that Travis picking stuff down. But when he solos, and he solos very well, it's kind of like this old school Chet Atkins vocabulary, but taken to the extreme, and harmonized almost entirely the whole time. So he'll play 2 solo lines at the same time. Like, what would you call that kind of a vocabulary? Is it like this Western type?
Yeah, they call it Western swing. So
Western swing vocabulary. It's that Western swing vocabulary. So it's a little bit like jazz, but less hip in a way.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit more
It's
dusty.
derived from much more old school jazz. People,
Yes, like old
pianists like
school.
Errol Garner and that type of comping, and it's putting sort of almost like boogie woogie, Mead Lux Lewis lines onto guitar, but the virtuosity level
without
is
all the crazy fancy bells and whistles added onto it. And I actually love that a lot, because it's very difficult to make that sound good, because anything that does not fit within the very narrow confines of that vocabulary sticks out like a sore thumb.
yeah, it's totally right. Yeah,
It's that's why it's very hard to play like Yngwie Malmsteen. It's easy to play like one or two licks and make it sound like Yngwie Malmsteen, but to actually play like him, the moment you play something that is not within the complete aesthetic realm of Yngwie Malmsteen, the whole illusion falls apart. And it's the same with this Western swing type of stuff. The moment you don't resolve the chord change perfectly, the illusion is shattered. It doesn't.
but Scotty Anderson does it when you watch him play. He could also go out, can't he? And he could go all. Because he's improvising with all these multiple lines. Now I'll tell you something about Scotty Anderson. I sent him a message the other day, and he agreed to an interview, Martin.
Wonderful.
Yeah, right. And I thought, I got it. I thought this is the video, the greatest guitarist in the world.
Well, he's up there clearly. I mean, what
he
he
is.
does, nobody else
really
does
think.
that. Yeah.
We've ended up with Lenny Breau and Scotty Anderson, and they're two sides of the same thing. And like you say, with Scotty Anderson, he's closer to being in that sort of Western swing country approach, like the Jerry Reed almost approach.
Yes.
Because Jerry Reed was incredible.
Crank to 11.
Crank to 11.
And then doubled. And it cloned himself and plays with himself at the same time.
Almost. So I chatted to him, and he's got a little covers band. He's like in his 70s now, and I can tell you, he's just not that fussed. But what's great is I'm going to message him and say, I was chatting to Martin Miller. He's a big deal, Martin is, and he was mentioning you, and I've mentioned you. And you got to come on. Would you come and interview him with me, Martin?
Yeah, I have to do a little bit more reading on him.
Yeah, well, there's not much there. Like I think it'd be lovely for him to tell the story. There's some incredible videos that were shot, like you said, in like it looks like early 90s, doesn't it? When he got the sort of guitar video thing happened, and a few. He's obviously at music shows every now and then, and it's just astonishing. Scotty Anderson, we've delivered. We've nailed this, Martin. I thank you very much.
Really good
great video. I'm really pleased with this one.
Yeah,
I think this is going to do well.
If I had done this by myself, I would have gone for the usual John Petrucci, Steve Lukather, Steve Morse, who are obviously my favorites. But because we put it into this context, it kind of got different ideas out of me, which I think is great.
Well, I think the thing is that what was unconscious when we started is we both wanted to talk about guitarists that you wouldn't normally talk about, because as great as Malmsteen is, say we did a video on Malmsteen, we both got to talk about Yngwie Malmsteen. What are we going to say about him? I've talked about it. Yeah. But to be able to put forth and to have a video where we've had the Edge and Scotty Anderson in the same video, and the thing is, yeah, and I'm so pleased. I feel so honoured that you watch my channel, Martin. I do appreciate it. You're such a monster player, lovely bloke. You've got a great YouTube. Everyone check Martin out. He doesn't need it, 800 bloody subscribers. If some of you aren't subscribed, unsubscribe. Get him a bit, knock him down a bit. Knock him down a bit. And if you haven't subscribed to me, do that.
Yes,
I'm feeling so jealous here. I've worked hard on my YouTube and I've got 50,000. I mean, 50,000 is good.
Yeah, that's
I've done all right, actually. Last time I saw you, I think I was on around about 15, and I'm doing all right. And you said once you go past 30, it starts speeding up, and it does.
Yes. And the great thing is you can just wake up, turn on the camera and rant and upload that, and people will soak up every word you say. If I said that, my channel would be destroyed within.
I do see you as being unlucky, because the only way you can make a YouTube video is to hire a bunch of expensive musicians, go to a very nice studio, have about 300 people making sandwiches for them all and making sure that all the cameras in the right place, the cabling's all worked,
and then
you've got to learn it and play it, and then if you go wrong, it's all stressful, and then you've got to take it away, edit it, mix it to get a bloody 5-minute video. I can go for an hour and a half just talking about how I ate Bryan Adams.
Yeah. That is a pain, I truly feel. Yeah.
But the thing is, we really appreciate it, Martin. And if you haven't checked Martin's, he's such a great player, but his channel, he'll take a great tune by all your favourite artists, and he's got a great band. And it's what music used to be. He's not one of these flashy Instagram players. If you think that, if you haven't checked him out, go and check him out. You know, and I'm so chuffed to have made contact with you, Martin. It's a shame you're not in the UK, so we can't hook up more.
I'll have to come over. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll book you on a gig here.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Yeah, we'll get you into some sort of weird context. AC/DC covers.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do, right?
I'd love to do that. I love that band.
Me too. Me too. We should make a video at one point.
Can you sing like Bon?
Why AC/DC are a great band and why you don't get it.
Yeah, that's the nuclear physics of rock.
Yes.
That's it. Right, I'm going to press stop now, and I'm on my iPhone. I don't hope this has worked. So I click on that one there, and then I stop recording. Bye, everybody. We're done now.
Bye-bye.